Your brain is changing faster than almost any generation in human history. And the terrifying part is that most people cannot feel it happening. You probably think your mind works the same way it did 5 years ago. Same attention span, same memory, same ability to think deeply. But if researchers are right, there is a measurable chance your brain is becoming less capable every single year, while the systems around you become more intelligent at the exact opposite speed. For almost an entire century, human intelligence moved in one direction only, up. Every generation scored higher on intelligence tests than the generation before it. Not slightly higher, consistently higher. Across countries, cultures, income levels, and education systems, a child born in 1980 would statistically outperform their parents on the same cognitive tests. Researchers called it the Flynn effect, and for decades it looked almost unstoppable. Then something happened that no one expected. Around the mid 1990s, the numbers stopped rising, then they began falling. At first, researchers assumed the data was flawed. Intelligence does not just reverse direction after climbing for half a century. But study after study kept finding the same pattern. Norway, Denmark, Finland, France, the Netherlands, the United States. Different researchers, different methods, same conclusion. The scores were dropping, and not in one tiny isolated category. Entire clusters of cognitive ability were declining together. Working memory, sustained attention, abstract reasoning, the ability to process information under pressure, the exact mental skills modern life depends on most. A 2018 Norwegian study tracked more than 700,000 men across multiple decades and confirmed the decline was accelerating. Another American study measured hundreds of thousands of people across several cognitive domains. Most of them showed measurable deterioration. Researchers used words like concerning, significant, alarming. But what makes this story difficult to ignore is not just what is falling. It is what started rising at the exact same time. And once you see both lines together, it becomes almost impossible to stop thinking about them. The explanation that spread fastest was also the easiest emotionally. Smarter people were having fewer children, less educated populations were having more. Over generations, average intelligence would naturally decline. It sounded mathematical, clean, inevitable. People repeated it because arithmetic feels objective. There was only one problem. The data did not support it. In 2018, researchers in Norway dismantled the theory using one of the simplest comparisons imaginable. They did not compare strangers. They compared brothers, same parents, same neighborhood, same dinner table, same genetics, same environment. The only meaningful difference was time, and the younger brother consistently scored lower. That single detail changed everything. Because if two brothers share the same DNA, but one performs worse simply because he grew up later, then the cause cannot primarily be genetic. Something in the environment changed between the older brother's childhood and the younger brother's. The seed stayed the same, the conditions changed, and whatever changed did not stay local. The same pattern appeared across multiple countries at almost the exact same period in history. It was broad enough to affect entire populations simultaneously. So what changed? Researchers eventually noticed something strange about the specific abilities declining fastest. The pattern was not random. The collapsing skills belonged to a cluster psychologists call executive function: working memory, attention control, delayed gratification, mental flexibility, the ability to hold several ideas in your head at once and manipulate them under pressure. In simple terms, these are the systems responsible for deep thinking. And here is the uncomfortable part. Those systems strengthen through effortful, sustained focus, through resisting distraction, through boredom, through staying with difficult thoughts long enough for the brain to build cognitive endurance. Modern life is almost perfectly designed to destroy that process. In 2004, the average person could stay focused on a single screen for roughly 2.5 minutes before switching tasks. By 2023, researchers found that number had collapsed to under 1 minute. Not because humans suddenly became lazy, because interruption became infrastructure. Every app competing for your attention is rewarded for breaking your concentration. Every notification fragments thought. Every feed trains your brain to abandon difficult focus. The second stimulation drops, and the brain adapts to the environment it survives in. That adaptation is happening right now while you watch this. Return to the Norwegian brothers for a moment. They grew up in the same house, but the younger brother entered a world with more screens, more notifications, more passive consumption, more algorithmic interruption, and fewer hours spent in uninterrupted concentration. The difference sounds small until you multiply it across years. The older brother trained focus, the younger brother trained switching, and the brain becomes efficient at whatever it repeats most. But attention is only part of the story. There is another layer almost nobody talks about because it sounds too quiet to matter: nutrition. For decades, commercial bread production used iodized dough conditioners. Iodine is essential for thyroid function, and thyroid function directly affects cognitive development, especially in children and during pregnancy. Throughout the 20th century, rising iodine availability tracked almost perfectly with rising intelligence scores across multiple populations. Then manufacturers quietly replaced many iodized conditioners with bromine-based alternatives. Most people never heard about the switch, but researchers noticed something else. Mild iodine deficiency began quietly returning in populations that previously considered it solved. In severe cases, iodine deficiency can reduce IQ dramatically. In developed countries, the effect is smaller but still measurable, and most people exposed to it had absolutely no idea it was happening. Lead exposure created another invisible drag. Aviation fuel continued using lead long after most people assumed the problem was solved. Entire birth cohorts growing up near small airports showed measurable cognitive losses years later. Now stack all of these pressures together: a fragmented attention environment, reduced cognitive endurance, nutritional decline, environmental toxins, passive consumption replacing effortful thought. Multiple forces converging on the exact same cognitive systems at the exact same moment in history. But even that is not the strangest part. The strangest part appears when you place the decline beside another graph. One line has been moving downward, the other has been accelerating upward almost vertically since 2015. Artificial intelligence? The comparison sounds dramatic until you look closely at the specific abilities involved. Human beings are declining fastest in sustained reasoning, working memory, attention control, and problem solving under pressure. Those are precisely the capabilities AI systems improved at fastest over the last decade. Not all at once, but steadily, relentlessly. And suddenly, the overlap becomes difficult to dismiss as coincidence. For almost 100 years, researchers measured how effectively humans think. Then, within less than a decade, machines began rapidly improving on many of the same cognitive benchmarks: one line down, one line up, closer together every year. Researchers will correctly point out that humans and AI are measured differently, but even they admit the overlap is real. The same mental terrain keeps appearing in both conversations: reasoning, memory, pattern recognition, sustained processing, the skills civilization was built on. Now, here is the part almost nobody tells you because it changes the emotional meaning of everything you just heard. The decline is environmental. That means it is reversible. The Norwegian brothers prove that, because if the environment helped create the decline, then a different environment can help reverse it. This is not a permanent flaw in human genetics. It is a response to conditions. And no generation before this one has ever been able to watch those conditions reshape cognition in real time. You can. You are living inside the experiment while the data is still updating. That changes the question completely. The question is no longer whether human cognition is declining. Enough evidence already suggests it is. The real question is whether people rebuild the conditions that produce deep thought before the systems replacing those skills become dramatically better at them. Because the abilities disappearing fastest are not trivial abilities, they are the abilities required to think independently. to resist manipulation, to solve hard problems without outsourcing cognition, to sit with complexity long enough to reach truth instead of convenience. And those abilities disappear quietly, not with a collapse, with adaptation, one distracted day at a time. The line is still moving, nothing about it is fixed yet, but history rarely gives generations the privilege of seeing transformation while it is happening. Most people only understand shifts like this after they are already permanent. You are seeing it early, which means for now at least the outcome is still negotiable.